Hey there, I'm Nancy Rhines, and my life took a wild turn that I never saw coming when I had an experience that felt totally out of this world. I went through a near-death experience, NDE, that gave me a sneak peek into the afterlife, where I met Jesus and was shown 5 amazing events that are set to happen in 2025. These moments aren't about doom and gloom. Instead, they're all about hope, unity, and change that could really shift humanity's path. I feel like I need to share this message, not to scare you, but to inspire and get you ready for what's ahead. The first 2 revelations really hit me hard, and they're just the start of something bigger. I'll never forget the day my life changed forever. I had a near-fatal accident that left me clinically dead for several minutes, and during that time, I went on this incredible spiritual journey surrounded by this warm, radiant light. I felt a peace like nothing I could have ever imagined in that sacred space. When I met Jesus, He wrapped me in unconditional love and purpose. He revealed 5 transformative events that are meant for 2025, and each one is super important for humanity's growth. This wasn't just an experience for me. It became my mission to spread hope, unity, and readiness to the world. When Jesus took my hand, we entered this vast expanse of light that was anything but empty. It was filled with warmth and purpose. He showed me the first vision, a world where nations that used to be at odds found a way to work together. In 2025, Jesus told me we'd see a major shift in how global leaders operate. Big names like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Vladimir Putin would play key roles in these changes. The vision kicked off with a breakthrough in clean energy technology. Elon Musk led a project that went way beyond just electric cars or solar panels. It was a game changer, a clean and abundant energy source that anyone, even those in the most remote areas, could access. This tech would free us from fossil fuels and help countries come together. What really struck me was how leaders, even those like Trump and Putin, who are often seen as divisive, united for this cause. Jesus made it clear that this unity wasn't just for show or politics. It was necessary. With climate challenges hitting a critical point, humanity figured out that survival meant working together. I saw vivid scenes of world summits where decisions were made openly, focusing on long-term solutions instead of backroom deals. Putin, who's usually seen as a tough guy, surprised everyone by being willing to compromise, especially when it came to peace agreements that allowed access to energy resources. This spirit of unity went beyond governments. Communities all over embraced this change. Schools taught kids about conservation, businesses focused on sustainability, and people rallied behind these efforts. The media even changed its tune, focusing on hope and progress instead of division and despair. What stood out the most in this vision was Jesus being there the whole time. He reminded me that these leaders were just instruments, and the real power was in the people. It was their prayers, their actions, and their faith in something bigger that made these collaborations possible. In the second vision, Jesus took me to a scene where humanity was deep in prayer and connection. This wasn't just happening in churches or temples. It was happening in homes, workplaces, and public squares. A global spiritual awakening was sweeping the earth, transforming lives in ways I had never seen before. So Jesus showed me this amazing vision where families were coming back together, people were letting go of old grudges, and communities were healing from their past hurts. It wasn't about one religion taking over. Instead, it was all about everyone recognizing God's presence and love, no matter where they came from. I even saw Donald Trump at a gathering, and he wasn't giving a political speech. He was genuinely calling for unity and kindness, talking about the importance of faith-driven leadership. Elon Musk, known for his tech genius, shared how his experiences made him see a divine force guiding us all. And surprisingly, even Vladimir Putin, usually seen as tough, was talking about a more spiritual way of leading. The youth were really getting into spirituality too, not because it was traditional, but because they found real meaning and hope in it. Even social media, which often gets a bad rap, became a platform for spreading messages of faith, inspiration, and building community. What really hit me was how simple it all was. People weren't leaning on big institutions or complicated doctrines. They were focusing on their personal connections with God. Jesus told me that this awakening came from countless prayers and a shared desire for peace and purpose. The vision was clear. This spiritual revival would lay the groundwork for everything else that was coming. It would give humanity the strength, clarity, and unity to tackle the challenges ahead. In the next vision, Jesus took me to see a pivotal moment in history when the global economy, which had been struggling with instability and inequality, started finding its balance. This didn't happen overnight or through the usual methods. It was the result of world leaders taking deliberate actions and a more awakened global population. I saw Trump again, now acting as a figurehead pushing for economic reform. He was working alongside leaders from various countries, including Putin and others from Europe and Asia. And surprisingly, they weren't in it for power. They were actually trying to come up with solutions that would help everyone. They created a new economic framework that focused on fairness, making sure resources were shared more equally so that everyone had a chance to thrive. Jesus explained that this change came at a time when many countries were on the edge of financial disaster. Traditional banking systems had failed, leading to a global reset. What came out of that was a system built on transparency and accountability. Cryptocurrency and digital assets played a big role, but with safeguards to stop any exploitation. These tools weren't controlled by big corporations or governments. Instead, they were managed by a decentralized, community-driven approach. I saw people in once poor areas finally getting access to education, healthcare, and technology thanks to these reforms. Elon Musk's innovations were a huge part of this, providing affordable tech that helped small businesses and local economies thrive. What struck me the most was how people started changing their views on money and resources. Jesus showed me folks choosing generosity over greed, sharing with their neighbors, and focusing on community well-being instead of just personal wealth. Governments even got in on it, creating policies that rewarded acts of kindness and cooperation. Jesus reminded me that the heart of this economic stability wasn't just about policies. It was a shift in human values. People began to see wealth not as a measure of success, but as a tool to build a better world. This new mindset spread quickly, bringing hope and restoring dignity to countless lives. In the fourth vision, Jesus showed me a world where technology wasn't tearing us apart or causing harm. Instead, it was being used for incredible good. This change was driven by innovators like Elon Musk and others who used their skills to tackle humanity's biggest challenges. I saw hospitals where advanced AI systems provided affordable health care for everyone, eradicating diseases that had plagued us for ages, thanks to breakthroughs in genetics and robotics. Jesus showed me that these advancements weren't just cool tech. They were acts of compassion designed to heal and uplift, not just to make a profit. Elon Musk played a key role in this transformation, focusing on medical technologies and educational tools. I even saw virtual classrooms where kids from the most remote areas could get quality education for free. These tools were made to spark creativity and critical thinking, helping the next generation face future challenges with wisdom and kindness. Jesus pointed out that these advances only happened because people shifted from competing against each other to collaborating. Corporations and governments teamed up to make sure everyone could benefit from technology, not just the rich. They made a global promise to close the digital divide, ensuring even the poorest areas had access to the internet and tech resources. One of the most heartwarming moments in this vision was seeing how technology brought people closer together. Families that were far apart could connect in ways that felt almost real. Older folks, who often felt isolated, could join in community life through immersive virtual spaces. Jesus stressed that technology itself is neutral. It's really about how people choose to use it. In this new age, folks decided to use these tools to heal, educate, and connect, instead of dividing or exploiting. This vision filled me with hope for what humanity could do when led by love and purpose. The fifth vision Jesus shared with me was probably the most surprising and uplifting. It showed peace starting to emerge in parts of the world that had been stuck in conflict for ages. This wasn't just about stopping wars. It was about beginning to heal relationships between nations and people who had been enemies for generations. Jesus showed me a major turning point in 2025 when global leaders, including Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, and other big names, came together for a series of unprecedented talks. These discussions were nothing like the formal, often staged summits I'd seen in the news. Instead, they were honest and heartfelt conversations. Leaders who once seemed unyielding softened up, realizing that unity was crucial for survival. In one scene, I saw Putin playing a key role in mediating peace in Eastern Europe. Despite his usually tough reputation, he was vital in bringing together opposing sides to strike a lasting deal. His approach was surprisingly humble, as if he'd experienced a personal awakening that changed his priorities. In another scene, Trump teamed up with leaders in the Middle East to support humanitarian efforts. They focused on not just rebuilding infrastructure, but also on building trust and reconciliation between communities. Religious leaders who had been hesitant to engage with politicians jumped into these efforts, creating a vibe of mutual respect and shared purpose. Jesus explained that this wave of peace didn't come from political ambition or public pressure. It was sparked by the prayers of millions around the world who had been asking for God's help and healing. This collective desire for peace touched something deep in the hearts of leaders and citizens alike. The most beautiful part of this vision was seeing how these efforts affected ordinary people. Families torn apart by war were finally reunited. Kids who grew up in fear began to feel safe and hopeful for the first time. Communities wrecked by conflict found strength in rebuilding together, setting aside their differences to create a brighter future. Jesus reminded me that while this vision was hopeful, it would take faith and perseverance to make it a reality. Peace isn't something that can just be forced. It has to be nurtured through understanding, forgiveness, and real efforts to see each other as brothers and sisters under God. After showing me these 5 events, Jesus looked at me with such compassion and purpose. His presence radiated a love so strong that I could feel it in every part of my being. He told me these visions weren't set in stone. They were possibilities shaped by the choices we make. Jesus explained that the key to making these positive outcomes happen lies in love, humility, and action. He talked about how we need to turn away from selfishness and fear, embrace faith, and work together toward a shared vision of hope. He really drove home how important it is for each of us to take responsibility. No matter what's going on in our lives, we all have a part to play in shaping the future. It's not about doing big, flashy things or making huge sacrifices. It's really about those little, everyday acts of kindness, forgiveness, and loyalty. Jesus said, "Tell them the power to change the world is in their hands, but they've got to start by changing their hearts." Unity and peace start from within, and when people turn to God and each other with open hearts, amazing things can happen. I felt this weight of the message, but at the same time, I was filled with this strong sense of purpose. Jesus reassured me that I wasn't alone in this mission. He reminded me that there are tons of others who've gotten similar messages, and together we can inspire people to embrace the light. As the vision started to fade, Jesus held my hand and said one last thing. Nancy, you have to share what you've seen, not to scare anyone, but to bring hope. The future isn't set in stone. It's like a blank canvas waiting for humanity's faith and love to paint it. Suddenly, I found myself back in my body, surrounded by medical staff who were calling my recovery a miracle. But I knew the real miracle was the message I had received, and now I was sharing it with you. As the visions faded away, I felt this strong pull, like I was being drawn back into my body. The warmth and light gave way to the cold, clinical vibe of a hospital room. My senses slowly came back. I could hear the machines humming, the doctors' voices muffled, and I felt the gentle touch of a nurse checking my pulse. When I opened my eyes, I saw a group of medical professionals around me, looking relieved and amazed. One of the nurses leaned in and said, "Nancy, you're a miracle. You were gone for several minutes." Those words echoed in my head, and tears started streaming down my face, not from fear or sadness, but from this overwhelming gratitude for getting a second chance. As I adjusted to being back in the physical world, I noticed something had changed. Colors were brighter, and even the simplest sounds, like the beeping of a monitor, had a rhythm I hadn't noticed before. It felt like a veil had been lifted, letting me appreciate the beauty in things I used to take for granted. The medical staff was puzzled by how quickly I was recovering, especially considering how serious the accident was. I didn't show any signs of lasting damage. The doctors called it a medical anomaly, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. It felt like divine intervention, a sign that my return had a purpose. Family members started coming into the room, their faces a mix of relief and disbelief. My sister held my hand tightly and said, "We thought we lost you." I smiled and reassured her, "I'm here, and I have something important to share." When I first tried to tell my loved ones about my experience, I found it tough to put into words. How could I explain the intensity of what I saw without freaking them out or sounding like I was making it up? I decided to start with small bits of the story, focusing on the love and peace I felt during my encounter. Some people were open to it and wanted to hear more. My sister, who's always been spiritually minded, listened with tears in her eyes and said, "Nancy, this was meant for you to share." Others were skeptical, brushing it off as just a hallucination or something from the trauma. I didn't argue or try to convince them. I just planted the seeds, trusting that the message would reach their hearts when the time was right. But honestly, the biggest challenge came from within. I felt this huge responsibility to share what Jesus had shown me. It wasn't just a personal thing, it was like a wake-up call. I started praying for help, asking God to give me the right words and the guts to say them. So I began journaling, jotting down every little detail of the visions and the feelings they stirred up in me. Writing became my way to find clarity and let out my emotions as the pages filled up. I soon realized that the message wasn't just about what was coming in 2025. It was really about the choices we make right now, both as individuals and as a community. Over time, I started sharing my story more openly, first at small local gatherings and then online. I wasn't looking for fame or approval. I just felt this strong urge to spread the hope and guidance that Jesus had given me. At each event, I focused on the positive side of the visions, like the chance for unity among nations, a spiritual awakening, and advancements that could help humanity. I reassured everyone that these events weren't just doom and gloom, but opportunities for real change. To my surprise, people responded really well. After my talks, folks would come up to me, sharing their own spiritual stories, or asking how they could get ready for what's ahead. Many said my story reignited their faith or gave them hope when they needed it most. One moment that stood out was when I met a young woman who was feeling pretty low. She told me, "Your story reminded me that I'm not alone and that there's still a reason to believe in goodness." Her words really hit home and motivated me to keep spreading the message. After Jesus shared the visions, he showed me how important regular people would be in these events. It wasn't about waiting for leaders or big organizations to step up. It was about folks like you and me stepping into our roles. Jesus showed me how groups of believers would become sources of hope and strength, especially during tough times. I saw small gatherings in homes and public places, not divided by differences, but united by their shared faith and desire to make a difference. These groups weren't limited by religion or culture. They were all about love, humility, and serving others. Some were giving food and shelter to those in need, while others were focused on education, teaching kids about compassion and resilience. Jesus made it clear that you don't need a lot of resources or power to make a difference. Even small acts of kindness can create big ripples in the community, inspiring others to join in. He showed me this powerful image of a single candle lighting up a dark room, spreading its glow until the whole place was bright. This, he said, was a symbol of how faith can change even the darkest situations. Jesus also reminded me that prayer would be one of the most powerful tools we have. I saw how the prayers of faithful people created waves of light that protected communities, softened hearts, and encouraged leaders to make wise choices. This wasn't just talk. I saw real outcomes: wars avoided, families brought back together, and systems changed, all thanks to the prayers of ordinary people. Jesus made it clear, you don't need power or wealth to change the world. Faith, love, and action are all you really need. This hit me hard and filled me with hope and purpose. In the next part of the vision, Jesus talked about getting spiritually ready. He explained that while the events in 2025 would bring great opportunities, they'd also test people's resilience and faith. Having spiritual strength would be key to dealing with these changes and keeping hope alive, even when things got tough. Jesus showed me people dedicating time each day to pray, meditate, and study scripture. These weren't huge, fancy rituals, just simple, heartfelt things that helped people feel connected to God. He talked about how, with everything changing so fast, it's super easy to get distracted or feel overwhelmed. These daily practices acted like anchors, giving clarity and peace in the midst of chaos. I saw families coming together to pray, and their bonds grew stronger as they looked for guidance and strength. Parents were teaching their kids about kindness and gratitude, planting seeds of faith that would help them face life's ups and downs. Communities were creating spaces for everyone to come together for worship and support, helping each other stay grounded. Jesus pointed out that spiritual preparation isn't just about personal growth, it's also about making a ripple effect. Those who were spiritually ready could offer support and comfort to others, becoming pillars of strength in their communities. This wasn't just for believers, it was for anyone looking for peace and understanding. One of the most powerful moments in this vision was seeing how spiritual preparation changed people's perspectives. Fear and despair turned into hope and determination. Instead of panicking when faced with challenges, they responded with faith and compassion, finding solutions and inspiring those around them. Jesus' final words in this vision were both a reminder and a call to action. The time to prepare is now. Build your foundation on faith. It will guide you through what's coming. Those words stuck with me, reminding me of the power of being spiritually ready. In the 11th vision, Jesus showed me just how amazing collective prayer can be for the world. He revealed that when people pray with sincerity and faith, it acts like a shield of light, protecting individuals, families, and even whole communities from harm. These prayers didn't just float up to the heavens, they moved through both the physical and spiritual realms, creating ripples that changed lives and events. I saw people gathering in their homes, churches, and open spaces, holding hands in prayer. It wasn't about fancy words or rituals. It was all about the unity of their hearts. Families prayed for healing, neighbors prayed for peace, and strangers prayed for the world. Each prayer added to a growing wave of light that spread across the earth, reaching places where darkness used to reign. Jesus showed me how these collective prayers could influence decisions and events. I saw a tense moment when world leaders, including Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and others, were about to make choices that could have led to global conflict. The prayers of millions created a spiritual shift, softening hearts and guiding these leaders towards dialogue and compromise instead of aggression. It felt like the prayers were a divine intervention, changing the course of history. Jesus also reminded me that prayer isn't limited by distance or circumstances. Even the prayer of a single person in a quiet room can add to the collective light. I saw an elderly woman, frail and alone, praying for peace in her community. Her prayer sparked a connection with others, igniting a chain reaction of kindness and reconciliation. In this vision, Jesus made it clear that prayer isn't just a tool for change, it's a lifeline for humanity. He said, "When you pray together, you not only draw closer to God, but also to each other." Prayer brings people together, heals the broken, and gives strength to those who are tired. This vision really blew me away. It made me believe even more in the power of prayer and how it can help create a better future. The 12th vision was all about the amazing guidance that would be available to everyone during the big changes coming in 2025. Jesus showed me that anyone who genuinely seeks divine guidance will find it in incredible ways. It's not just for a special few. It's open to anyone ready to listen and act with faith. Donald Trump, who used to be such a divisive figure, stepped up to support community-driven projects. I saw him in this small town struggling economically, not just handing out cash, but also sharing encouraging words that sparked hope in the people there. Jesus made it clear that these leaders aren't perfect, but their willingness to change and genuinely help made a huge difference. He pointed out that real leadership isn't about power. It's about being responsible and serving others selflessly. This vision reminded me that true leaders inspire by leading by example. Jesus told me that those who lead with love will light the way for others. Authentic leadership starts with humility and a genuine desire to help. The last vision Jesus shared was full of hope, a future where humanity thrives not because everything is perfect, but because we learn to embrace our imperfections with grace. He showed me a world where the struggles of 2025 turned into stepping stones for growth, unity, and faith in a brighter tomorrow. Families were spending more time together, cherishing relationships over money. Communities were lively and connected, supporting each other in ways that once seemed impossible. Schools were all about nurturing creativity and compassion, teaching kids not just how to succeed, but how to make a meaningful contribution to society. Technology, guided by ethical values, became a force for healing and progress. Elon Musk's innovations kept pushing forward sustainable solutions, from curing diseases to fighting climate change, and these advancements were available to everyone, helping bridge the gap between the rich and poor and urban and rural. World leaders, including Trump and Putin, played their parts in making this better future happen. They set aside their personal goals to focus on what's best for everyone, inspiring others to do the same. This wasn't about one person changing the world. It was about a collective shift in mindset where humanity started prioritizing what really matters. Jesus wrapped up the vision with a simple but powerful reminder: The future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make today. Love, faith, and unity will always lead to a brighter tomorrow. As I came back to reality, I felt this renewed sense of purpose. This final vision wasn't just a peek into what could be. It was a call for all of us to come together and build that brighter future.